Good evening. I think we are ready to kick off this evening's Empowering Women Leadership event. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Andrea Ratte. I am the chair of the New York District Export Council. It's nice to see so many of you here. For those who don't know what the New York District Export Council is, we're a group of international trade professionals nominated by the Secretary of Commerce to support the mission of promoting U.S. exports. We're an all-volunteer group, and we're part of a network of district export councils in every state in the United States. I'm also pleased to say that FIT's own Christine Pomerantz is the vice chair of the New York District Export Council, and we very much appreciate her involvement with our group. So as we kick off the celebration of World Trade Week, New York is all in. We already had our first kickoff event earlier today, and pleased to lead into this event on women in leadership. We're going to start with video messages from two leaders in Washington who are engaged in the shared mission of creating jobs and expanding U.S. exporters. With that, I'm going to turn you over to those video messages from Secretary Raimondo and Representative Carolyn Maloney. Thank you. We can't hear it, Barney. Just give us a moment on the technology. We had it all working out.
Barney, you are on mute. That's why it's not playing.
I'll take this opportunity just if you are not speaking, please do mute your your audio. Thank you.
This is Nancy. Before we get started as well, I just wanted to tell everyone that we are going to have our discussion, and that if you would like to ask any questions as you're listening to the speakers, you have questions, please put them in the chat box. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Microsoft Teams, up on the top menu bar, there's a little bubble, and you just click on that bubble, and then you can submit your question. And then we'll go through the questions after the presentations. And we are not going to be reading any bios. For those of you who have not as yet looked at our event posting, all of the bios of our speakers are on the event posting. So in the interest of time, we'll encourage you to do that. So thank you as we're waiting for our videos. Thank you.
Hello, New York City. It's a great privilege to be here with you to mark the annual celebration of World Trade Week, New York City. Thank you to our New York District Export Council Chair, Andrea Ratte, for inviting me to take part in today's event. I'd also like to extend my appreciation to all of the event sponsors for your support of this important dialogue. My name is Gina Raimondo, and I'm proud to serve as the 40th United States Secretary of Commerce. As Commerce Secretary, my mission is to spur the creation of good-paying jobs, empower entrepreneurs to innovate and grow, and to help American workers and businesses compete at home and abroad. Since taking office, I have also focused on restoring U.S. leadership around the world and repairing trade partnerships and alliances, as well as helping U.S. small businesses seek to compete globally. Commemorating World Trade Month this year is significant, not only to celebrate American workers and communities who have risen to the greatest challenge of our time, but to underscore that trade will be a fundamental part of building back better. President Biden believes now is the moment to reimagine and build a new American economy, and his vision places U.S. workers at the center. And I will be your partner in driving economic resiliency and recovery by harnessing global opportunities. Commerce has offices in more than 100 cities all across America. We're uniquely positioned to help the nation build back better because we're deeply rooted in the very communities that will be at the forefront of our economic recovery. For example, here in New York City, the department's International Trade Administration has U.S. export assistance centers in Lower Manhattan and in Harlem that help local businesses grow globally by developing strategic, actionable export plans. Our New York City presence has a long history supporting business to succeed globally. Trade will have an important role in the global recovery from COVID-19. We're all familiar with the data that businesses who export are and more likely to record higher revenues, create more jobs, and pay higher wages than those that don't. As global business professionals, I look to you to help bridge the gap between domestic and international efforts and help small businesses, workers, and communities drive local economic growth by thinking globally. You are such an important conduit to many small businesses, startups, entrepreneurs, and innovators in the New York metro area. Our companies currently face so many challenges, but we will create opportunities by targeting trade promotion efforts in 3 key areas. The first is climate change. Trade will play an important role in facilitating low carbon investments and access to the technologies needed to drive clean and sustainable development. Second, travel and tourism. It's one of the sectors that has been the most impacted by the pandemic, and we are committed to make significant investments in the industry. And finally, promoting equitable economic growth to underserved communities and small businesses. We're committed to eliminating social and economic structural barriers to equality and economic opportunity. To help companies build back better through exports, I've set a goal for the International Trade Administration to leverage digital tools to double the number of small businesses we assist, with specific focus on women and minority-owned businesses. Nobody can outcompete the American worker and American small business, and I'm committed to doing everything I can as Secretary of Commerce to support our nation's broader economic recovery by helping companies, small businesses, and entrepreneurs to build world-class products for the world's markets. Before I close, I'm pleased to announce our upcoming Select USA Investment Summit, June 7th to 11th. It will be held virtually. The Select USA Investment Summit is the highest profile event dedicated to promoting foreign direct investment in the United States. It plays a vital role in attracting business investment and raising awareness about the wide range of investment opportunities in the United States. For more information, please visit selectusa.gov. I look forward to continued partnership to reach our goals, and I thank you for inviting me to be part of the World Trade Week, New York City.
Hello, everyone, and thank you to the New York District Export Council. Hello, everyone, and thank you to the New York District Export Council for putting this great event together, despite the pandemic, and thank you for inviting me to be the keynote speaker for your 2021 Empowering Women Leadership event. I am thrilled to join the incredible women gathered here today and to participate in this event, which combines some of my strongest interests in Congress: advancing women's opportunities, strengthening our economy, and defending our financial system and national security. I've always been a strong advocate for women, and I've been trying to remove barriers that women face since the day I first came to Congress in 1993. When I saw how few women were serving on corporate boards, I introduced the Diversity in Corporate Leadership Act, which recently passed out of the Financial Services Committee earlier this month as part of my good friend and colleague, Representative Gregory Meek's legislation, the Corporate Governance Through Diversity Act. Back in 2015, I asked the Government Accountability Office to look at the gender makeup of corporate boards, and the results made it clear that we had to take action. The GAO found that even if we assume that if women began joining boards at a rate equal to men, it would take more than 40 years for there to be an equality in representation. That is completely unacceptable. Women make up roughly 47% of the workforce, and yet they only hold roughly 29% of board seats at the Fortune 500 companies. Something needs to change. And just so we're clear, increasing diversity on corporate boards is not just the right thing to do, it's good business too. Study after study has shown that companies with greater gender, racial, and ethnic diversity on their boards perform better financially. McKinsey found that companies with the highest racial diversity on their boards were 33% more likely to have above average profitability. A study by Credit Suisse found that companies with at least one woman on the board, just one, outperformed competitors by 3.5% per year for the last decade. With this data, investors want companies they invest in to increase the diversity of their boards. My legislation with Congressman Meeks puts that power in investors by requiring public companies to report the racial, ethnic, and gender composition of their boards and executive officers in their annual proxy statement. And by putting this information in one place for investors, without requiring them to go look at just the gender, race, or ethnicity of a board member based on names, the bill would help investors to quickly sort the companies that do and do not have diverse boards, enabling to invest in the companies who share their values. The legislation would also establish a diversity action advisory group at the SEC, which would study strategies to increase gender, racial, and ethnic diversity on corporate boards. Making meaningful progress on board diversity is going to require a range of different policies in addition to the improved disclosures in this legislation. And representation matters, not just in meetings and boardrooms, but also on the public stage. As we work to encourage more women to join the financial and other industries that have typically been dominated by men, we can inspire them by showing those who came before. Over the last decade, I've been working to pass a bill creating a national museum dedicated to telling the story of American women. And finally, in December, it became law. What an incredible feat it will be to have an entire museum, and the first one in the country anywhere, dedicated to the achievements and contributions of women in our country. It's way past time for this, and I'm proud we managed to get it through Congress, even in such difficult times. I firmly believe that if you see it, you can be it. And as we talk about representation and equality, There's nothing more fundamental to fixing gender inequality in this country than finally changing the U.S. Constitution, our most foundational document, by making the Equal Rights Amendment, or ERA, the 28th Amendment. It will impact every single man, woman, and child in this country by providing permanent protection against discrimination on the basis of sex. Women's rights should not be dependent on who controls legislatures, the White House, or the courts. It must be solidified in our Constitution. One of the persistent ways women are still discriminated against today is unequal pay. March 24th was Equal Pay Day, the day which represents the extra months women must work to be paid what men were in the previous year. The wage gap is a disgrace and should not exist in our country. This past Equal Pay Day, as chair of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, I held a hearing examining the pay gap and its effects on women with U.S. women's national team soccer star, Megan Rapinoe. She testified about how women's soccer players make just 38 cents to the dollar paid to the men's team, even though the women are world champions and won the last 2 World Cups, which the men did not. If women like Megan Rapinoe, who are at the top of their game, can be paid so little, imagine how much worse it is for women who have a smaller platform and fewer advantages. And of course, we cannot talk about the future of our financial system without an eye on national security. That is why I fought for over a decade to pass the Corporate Transparency, a transformative anti-money laundering and anti-corruption bill that will crack down on bad actors who seek to exploit loopholes in our financial system. This bill cracks down on anonymous shell companies, which have become the vehicle of choice for terrorist financing, money laundering, and organized crime. Without this legislation, the U.S. became one of the easiest places in the world to set up anonymous shell companies because no state currently requires companies to disclose their true beneficial owners. When a terrorist cell wants to move their money or a criminal syndicate wants to launder money, they can do it right here in the U.S. It's why you didn't see any Americans exposed in the Panama Papers. They didn't need to go to Panama. They can do it right here in America. The same terrorist groups that want to attack the U.S. are also using our own financial system to finance those attacks. It's appalling, and it has to end. These anonymous shell companies are also know how kleptocrats and criminals have been parking their money in luxury real estate in my district in New York and elsewhere. If you drive through New York City at night, you'll see that entire buildings have no lights on because no one actually lives in these apartments. They were purchased purely to hide money and to act as a bank account. And when kleptocrats and criminals pour their money into real estate in New York, that limits the availability of housing and drives up housing costs for ordinary Americans. So not only will my bill make our country safer, but it will also lower housing costs for New Yorkers. And that's why I'm so proud that this bill was finally signed into law just a few months ago. My bill will make it harder for terrorists, criminals, and kleptocrats to finance their illegal operations and move their money. And this will ultimately make the U.S. and the world a safer place. I want to close by acknowledging all of the incredible women here again for their incredible achievements and for paving the way for future generations of women to follow in our footsteps. Thank you again to the New York District Export Council for putting together this important event and for having me. It was my honor to join you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolyn and Gina. Very wise words for us to consider this evening. Again, welcome. My name is Nancy Plager. I am the EVP of the IWEC Foundation. We're an organization that supports the growth of women-owned businesses internationally. We're very happy to have you here with us celebrating our World Trade Week Women's Leadership Agenda. As I mentioned before, the bios of our panelists are available online. I'm not going to read them in the interest of time. And again, as we go along, if you have questions, just go to the top of the menu bar, to the bubble, and put your questions in the chat room, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So first, I would like to tell our panelists to please turn your videos on, as well as your microphones, so that we can all be on. There's Barbara. Okay. Irina and Ngozi.
Hi.
Thank you. So I'm just going to introduce our panelists alphabetically and ask them to say a few words about themselves. Chantal, I'm sorry, could we ask you to take your, oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. So first I'd like to introduce Barbara Barron. Barbara is the CEO of Classic Rug Corporation. And she has also won one of the World Trade Week Small Business Awards in the past in recognition of the growth of her business through international and global marketplace. Barbara, please say a few words.
Thank you for having me this evening. I grew up at a time when girls, as we were called, were expected to be nurses, teachers, librarians, or homemakers. At the time that I was growing up, we had one female senator, and she got that seat because her husband died. I wanted to be a physician, but after I went to college and applied to med school, in my interviews, one of the things that was said was, how do we know that you won't graduate and stay home and play bridge in the afternoon? So that didn't work out. So I got a job managing a furniture store in Philadelphia. The owner told me he would hire me because I do a better job than the man he had hired, and he could pay me less. And at that time he could. So after 3 years of that, I went to graduate school, got my doctorate in Shakespeare. My advisor died, couldn't get a full-time job. So I worked for some corporations in sales. I did extremely well. And I decided that rather than have a corporation underpay me, that I would start my own business because I would never underpay myself because I was a woman. And I've held true to that. In fact, I just gave myself another raise recently. So I started off with 10 rugs of my own design, going to little shows, and I now attend trade shows in Frankfurt, Dubai, Paris, London, and all over the United States. And I did win the Export Excellence Award from the Commerce Department. So, and I want to say I was in my early 50s when I started my business. So thank you for having me tonight.
Good for you, Barbara. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us. All right, our next panelist this evening is Irina Kappa, who's the co-founder of Corbin and Lane. Irina, you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. I have spent the last 20 plus years in various corporate roles in sales and marketing. Many of them being in very male-dominated industries like financial services. And so I had pretty much gone through the gamut of leadership styles through the different managers that I've had. And I think that that's really helped shape me into who I am today, and really giving me that courage to starting my own business, which is in fashion design and manufacturing. And I'm really, really excited to talk more about what that means for me and my leadership style.
Excellent. Thank you, Irina. And our third panelist is Ngozi Akaro, who's the Executive Director of Custom Collaborative. Ngozi.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. A little bit about me. I started my career actually in retail fashion. Was my first job out of college as a manager. I, after a couple of years, went to law school, and really with the ambition of helping to create a more just world. I've always wanted to work on issues around women and children, and law school seemed like the best way to do it. So fast forward to today, I lead Custom Collaborative, the only organization in this nation that provides training and mentorship and advocacy for women trying to develop careers in sustainable fashion right here in New York. So I'm so excited to be here to hear more from the other panelists and to learn. Thank you.
Great, Ngozi, thank you so much. And I just wanted to say again, I'm going to be asking questions. I'll ask the one question, some questions of all of you, and others I'll just ask you to chime in. And I really would like this to be more of a conversation as well, so that as you hear what someone else has to say and you feel you want to add to that, please just jump in. So I think that would be the best way to really learn as much as we can from all of you. Okay, so our first question is a pretty basic one. You kind of covered it already, Barb, but how did you get to where you are today? Which qualities, factors, or impactful experiences played the strongest role in shaping your leadership style? And I am going to ask this question of each of you. So you Ngozi and Irina can start thinking about that answer. So you're on the hot seat, Bart.
Well, I was the youngest of three girls, and my father had a furniture and carpet store. And he really wanted somebody who could build things with him and do things with him. And so my older sister and I have installed garbage disposals, built closets with bifold doors. My father let us know that we could do anything. He taught me how to use a cash register when I was 7 years old. I did bank deposits when I was a child. I hate to think of it. He would send me off with the deposit bag, and there I would go. And so my father always had confidence in us, and he felt that we could do anything. And that really set the path for me at a time when that attitude was quite unusual.
Very good. Thank goodness for your strong father who recognized right off the bat that you are all able to do anything.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go around the horn this time. And would you like to share? Do you want me to repeat the question? How did you get to where you are today? Which qualities, factors, and impactful experiences played the strongest role in shaping your leadership style?
So me, Ngozi, yeah, sure, I'm happy to answer it. How did I get to where I am? For me, it's starting Custom Collaborative, right, which is organized to promote entrepreneurship for no low-income women, was really about my personal experience. I had a dressmaker who in fact made the dress that I'm wearing today. She makes custom clothes. I was hard to fit because I'm tall. And I just started thinking about how we could expand the opportunities for Mariama and other women like her to create clothes for the rest of us that fit and that we like, and just how powerful it would be if we could create a woman-to-woman commerce community that uplifts women all the way around. And so that's how kind of like big picture I got to it. I think just like Barbara, part of the impetus, the push for me was my dad, right? One day he saw me fiddling around with a sewing machine, and he's an engineer, retired, And he said, well, what did you engineer last night? And I was like, oh, I didn't engineer anything. I worked on a dress. And he said, that's engineering. He's right. You're turning something 2-dimensional into something 3-dimensional. But him saying you should start a business, I just started thinking about like, okay, somebody believes that I have good business skills. And I know that this is not the business for me, but it can be for someone else. And so then that was really the spark.
Very good. Excellent. So Irina, you want to jump in?
Sure. So, how did it start for me? Like I had said, I was in a financial services company for a number of years, and that was really the career path that I'd taken for most of the years that I was working. And I reached a point, maybe it was my midlife crisis, because it was right around when I turned 40, and I just wanted more, and I knew that I could do more. And I ended up taking a very different path and working at a company that I invested in, and leading their sales and marketing effort there, and working with a lot of fashion brands, helping them develop their brands, helping them grow their brands, bring their ideas to life. And it was so exciting for me. And I realized my next step was, all right, now I want to do this for myself. And so that's how Corbin and Lane came about. And it's really working with these brands, getting excited about seeing them fulfill the dreams that they have, or kind of, solve for some of the pain points and challenges that the industry is facing. So I think that over time, through all my different experiences, I would say that, my leadership style evolved just because of the leaders that I had, and what I learned from them. So I was able to kind of take the good from them and then kind of put my own spin on it. And I would say that it was really sort of the untraditional path that I took that really helped shape what my style is.
Right. Do you feel that either your father or mother was more influential in your upbringing or in your attitudes about going out in the business world?
I would actually say it was my grandmother. I come from a very traditional Greek family, and it is not very traditional for someone in that generation to be entrepreneurial as a woman. And she was pretty much the force behind my grandfather. And he really allowed her and was open-minded enough to allow her to do that. And so looking at her as an example was really what shaped me. And I hope I can become half the woman she is.
Excellent. Yes, I think we all have someone influential. I know, not that my mother wasn't influential. She was a wonderful, terrific mom and person, but it was my father too. Because when I said, hey, I want to make some money because I want to buy a new bike, he said, great, we live in an apartment building. I'll help you make a flyer and you can just put it in everybody's mailboxes and tell them that you'll run errands for them, you'll walk dogs for them, you'll do different things for them. And so at 12 years old, I was an entrepreneur. So I think that was my influence as well. And a lot of women you talk to, their moms, or in your case, Irina, the grandmothers, there's always someone in your home growing up, I feel, that gives you that boost, that gives you that spirit, that makes you, same as Barb. My dad said you could do anything. I was working with him in his workshop with his tools and cutting lawns, and same thing. So I think there's always an influential person, and it's just equally split between the father and the mother, and sometimes the grandmother as well. So I'm sure that all of our listeners are always already thinking about who is their most influential person in their life as well. Okay, we'll come to the next question is, how have leadership opportunities for women and diverse members of the community evolved over the years? Let's start with you, Ngozi.
I mean, how have leadership opportunities evolved for women over the years? I think that there are more. I think, though, that my experience is more based on me being a Black person rather than me being a woman. And I would say that, unfortunately, I don't think that leadership opportunities have really advanced that much for Black people, for other people of color. I think that is borne out in some of the statistics that we see about who runs Fortune 500 companies, about whose businesses are funded with venture capital, like any number of things. You know, frankly, my own path, part of the reason that I decided actually I need to start my own organization was, one, because I did not see people actively cultivating and growing and mentoring and stewarding low income women of color. And two, I found that people had a hard time accepting me as a leader, right? So, you know, I knew that something needed to happen. I knew that if it was going to happen, I would be the person to be the leader to start this. But in my experience, I have many more challenges than I see similarly or lesser qualified people um, doing the work that I do.
Mhm. Since you've started Ngozi, do you think that over the last couple of years, not necessarily just with the political atmosphere, but have you felt that opportunities are starting to open up more, or you just see it being a very slow process?
It's been a very slow process. I mean, we have had some institutions like New York Women's Foundation that have funded us consistently. We have had some very helpful individuals who have funded us consistently, but it was not until last year when George Floyd was murdered that more opportunity came around, right? And so I didn't get any smarter. I didn't get any more talented. It's just that people saw that there was a gap and that there was a lack and that there's actually been, let's say it, discrimination. And so I think it's important to redress that right now. And, you know, I'm open to help pilots, studies, ideas. It's just that the people who I know who are in these positions and should be in these positions of power and leadership face many of the same obstacles as I do, and across the board, we're Black and brown women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Barbara, I know your experience is probably a little bit different, but how do you feel about the whole landscape now for women-owned businesses?
Well, I want to address something that Ngozi just said, because I think that those of us who have started our own businesses can really help other people by working with them. I am the mentor for a man who wants to start his own ice cream business. He's a Black man in his early 50s, and he makes the best ice cream in the world.
Is it sorry. Is it in New York? Because I just need to write it down on my list.
Lois and Fats is the name
you.
of his company, and he's still trying to get money together. And I've worked with a young Haitian woman from Sarasota because she made beautiful jewelry, and I speak to her and try to mentor her. And this is the main difference between male leadership and female leadership. It costs me nothing in prestige and importance to work with somebody who's starting out, because if I can help that person and if that person becomes successful, that's great. But with men, and I hate to generalize here, but with men, I feel that men are not as collaborative as women are. And so I think that women have that ability to reach out. And I also think we have that obligation to reach out to help other women get to where we are, and especially women of color. Absolutely. I work with the G's Bend Quilters of Alabama. I've been working with them for 16 years. Yep.
Great, Barbara. Well, I think you've got a really good point there about helping other women grow their businesses, not only grow their businesses, but also take tips from you all on your leadership styles. And, you know, they have to be good leaders if they're going to grow their business. So being a mentor to an up and coming young woman of color or not. That's really, I think, a key and very important. And Irina, what would you like to add on this topic?
I think that especially now with the pandemic, it's really hit women harder. There's about 5.5 million women who have exited the US workforce since February of 2020 to either care for their families or for other responsibilities that they need to take on. Also, in this past year, the statistic is 2.3% of female-founded businesses get venture funding, and last year it was 2.9, so it's actually going down. I think that so this is a lot of, I don't want to be negative Nelly here, but the one good thing is that we know these statistics now and people are talking about them. I think that we need to see more action in a lot of the hierarchies where decisions can be made so that a lot of this can turn around. There's definitely much more awareness of what is going on now than there was even a couple of years ago. But I do think we have a ways to go. I actually am also a private investor and invest in female-founded only businesses. And so what I also do with them is I consult to help try to get them in front of the right investment firms and investment partners, because it is a struggle and we need to help each other, like you said, Nancy and Barbara and Ngozi. We need to help each other.
Right. And I think also, looking at all of these venture capitalists and corporations in general, just seeing how few women and women of color are represented on the boards of directors, I think that also needs to change, because I know it's a slow growth and it has been growing over the years, but it's very slow. And the more that happens, and the more we're going to have role models as leaders for the young women who are up and coming, not only entrepreneurs, but those that are growing within corporations. They need to see people that look like them, people that lead in their roles, and that they can take their cues from and their tips. So I think that's also another way of helping to establish good leadership practices.
Yeah, and I just want to add, like, I agree 100% with what Irina and Barbara said about women being the key of supporting other businesses. Even in the past few months, Custom Collaborative, there have been women business owners who have come to us and said, okay, we want to help support this organization. We want to hire striving women. We want to buy their products. And I really think it's about the communities that women create and recognize, having had their own setbacks and challenges, really want to come in and help the rest of us.
Yes, totally agree. All right, so a little keeping on that same area of leadership, which areas and leadership skills do you think need the strengthening for women? In other words, what are women still kind of missing in your estimation, especially you, Ngozi, and also you, Irina, who work with these companies? What do you see missing? Where are the gaps? What do we need to work better on informing the up-and-comers about their leadership skills? Do you want to start?
Okay, sure. I think that a big thing is understanding that we do not have to replicate the businesses and the business experiences that we came from. I am fortunate to be a mentor to a cooperative, worker-owned cooperative business that Custom Collaborative has started. It's called Fashion That Works Production, and they, do sewing here in the city. And one of the members talked about, oh, I work 70 hours a week. I do whatever it takes. We have to grind. I've been working since however long, and this is how we have to do it. And everybody else has to do that also. And this is what we have to do. My response is, that is what you've seen. That is what you've experienced. but the rest of the people in the business don't want to work like that. And because they are mothers of young children, can't work like that. And we don't have to work that way in order to make money and to have satisfying lives. But I think that we've had some things imposed on us and that we've seen, well, this is how it is and this is how it has to be. But I think that women have the creativity to create whole different models, job sharing, cooperative ownership, all of these things that work for us and probably work better for the economy. So that's definitely one thing. And I think also the ability to be measured and thoughtful and calm. I think that women probably do that a bit more than male leaders. And so it's not about necessarily yelling people and punishing people to get something done. It's probably more of some of the things that we do in our own relationships and lives. So having relational rather than transactional leadership, for me, I find works better.
Irina?
So in terms of strengthening leadership skills, I have one that's a little bit more generic and then one that's a little bit more specific to women. But in general, I think that we need to do a better job of strengthening our leadership skills across the board. I think that one of the key things that leaders tend not to do is to really find out what their why is before communicating to their team or their company the what or the how. And it's critical to them as being good leaders, but also to their company's growth and to their personal growth. I think that if you don't know your purpose, you can't clearly communicate it, you can't effectively execute it, and your mission kind of goes off path, and you're not laser focused on what you're looking to do long term. So it's hard to maintain inspiration and to keep your team excited if you don't keep that why at the forefront of everything that you do. But most importantly, have that be that driving force for the team. I think that, creating a culture of authenticity, we use that word a lot nowadays, which I love, is something that excites people. People want to be themselves. They want to be their authentic self and bring that to the table. And you have to allow that to shine. I think specifically for women, one of the biggest hurdles that we have as women is speaking up and being proud of our accomplishments and not trying to kind of bring them down, not trying to be too humble. I think we're used to, I'm great at this, but so-and-so does it so much better. You try to keep that humility. And I think that humility is good to an extent. But as a leader, you need to use your voice and you need to have a level of authority. And I think sometimes that can be misunderstood as a woman maybe not being as strong in what she's thinking, or she's waffling too much. And it may not be the case, but we need to kind of, figure out how we maintain that authoritative voice, really say what it is that we believe in and that we feel without feeling bad for it or trying to justify it. I think that's something men do a lot better than us, is that they don't justify the why as much.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'd like
Barbara, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I want to add something to that. I think that it's really important for women to speak up and just keep talking. Studies have shown that when women are in meetings, that men tend to talk over them. And I remember one graduate seminar. It was the top level Shakespeare seminar at Columbia. And I was the only woman in the class. And every time I started to talk, this guy on my left would just take over. And finally, I turned to him one day and said, "I'm talking." And then I just continued to talk. And I know that it sounds rude, but we need to do that because otherwise people talk over us. And if you think that they didn't take you seriously, if you have a soft voice and curly hair, oh, please, they think you have nothing to say. So just keep talking and have confidence in yourself. And even if somebody starts to talk over you, keep talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good advice, definitely. Okay, so we're going to ask you now, what is next for you? Irina, what's next? What are you thinking about?
So I'm really excited because I'm growing a new business, which is Corbin and Lane, and we're a customer-centric design and development house, really working with fashion brands on customized solution with product development, sourcing, sustainability, manufacturing, business expansion, and growth. We're focused in apparel, accessories, and footwear, and so I'm really excited about that from a professional standpoint, and kind of, following that path of entrepreneurship that I've really always wanted to do. And then I also have a passion project that I'm working on. It is a podcast called Decoding Destiny, sound bites from the C-suite. And what it is, it's a weekly podcast that I'm launching in a couple weeks, where I capture different strategies from very incredibly successful women and share these sound bites to help other women decode the challenges that they may be having in their life, both personally and professionally, and then mapping their own destiny from that. So I'm launching that, but I'm also creating a community on Facebook that will be centered around the podcast to allow for women to just have those conversations, feel like they have a private space to be able to engage with both the women that are, on the podcast, but also with each other. I think we can learn from each other, and we should continue to learn from each other in order to grow and become stronger.
Right, and I think, Irina, it's really great that you were kind of seeing your way through this pandemic and finding a way to use your voice and to use the voices of other women in a very large collective. I think that's one of the things that we've all come to know in a pandemic, how to navigate, and what, we have to make lemonade out of lemons. So I think you are a good example of seeing that communication capabilities that have come even, 360 degrees since the pandemic. And kudos to you for taking this on and wanting to share the experience of others and help women to grow. And I think, that also has to question I wanted to ask is with regard to leadership. With the pandemic and with everything and so much online, I'd be really curious to know if any of you have noticed, if you've been in any of these seminars or panel discussions or webinars or whatever, if you've noticed women taking a more strong position, or do you see that they've also just kind of trying to figure out where everything is, and so they're not really stepping forward as leaders? Do you have any feelings on that? It's kind of hard to demonstrate your leadership capability when you're in a big group on a Zoom call, as opposed to being in a room. Have you noticed any difference?
From my experience, I wouldn't say that. And I also want to preface it by saying that my window into this topic is just my world. So this may be very different for many different people. So I don't want to make a generalization of women on, how they're reacting to the pandemic. But what I've seen is that, the women that I've surrounded myself with and that I work with are not really inhibited by that. I do think that, especially from a leadership perspective, we have this, impression that a leader is, the one that's coming out with these great ideas, the one that's always talking. But really, if you look at what a leader should be, it's really a facilitator. A leader should be creating that environment where great ideas can happen. And I think that we have that misconception of leaders being the problem solvers. They need to dominate. They need to, they're staunch in there. But really, a great leader is actually looking at and listening to everyone, trying to combine all different ideas to even come up with something even better. But patience and letting people get what they need out is critical in leadership. Otherwise, it's just your own voice that you're hearing. And that's not really, creating anything outside of what you know.
Right, right. And Ngozi, you want to add anything there? What, have you noticed anything in this pandemic and with your colleagues that they're handling this leadership any differently because it's on a screen versus in a room?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like everything Irina said, I mean, I don't have, I don't think a different vantage point. And in fact, most of the people with whom I work, both inside the organization and outside, are women. If anything, I would say I think that women are more creative problem solvers. And so just looking back on my experience with Custom Collaborative, when an early pandemic, like March 2020, somebody got the idea, well, all of our participants have, lost all of their jobs. Let's make PPE. In the first, idea of like making gowns with a government agency, that didn't work out. So we said, okay, we'll make masks, right? Because we knew we had to get money to women. We had to find a way for them to earn income. And so we figured it out. We made masks. We figured out how to sell masks. We made too many masks. You can have a 30% discount on masks. But we all came together, and one person had an idea, and then another person had an idea, and we put it together and twisted it around and thought about just different possibilities. And that's what happened. But because my experience is mostly of working with women for the past 3 or 4 years, that was not different than usual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Barbara, have you noticed anything with some of your clients or any of your colleagues?
I work primarily with men because I do international shipping, I do manufacturing. There aren't very many female rug designers and producers. They're designers, but the number of us who produce our own products is actually very small. I've participated in virtual trade shows and it was very interesting. I found that the clients that I got were women. I have a new representative in Kazan in Kazakhstan, and I have a new representative in Berlin, a Turkish woman who was born in Turkey and moved to Berlin. So I find it interesting that even though these people are speaking to me online and we're all working together, that when it comes to actually selling and making the deal, that it was the women who felt more comfortable dealing with me. Yeah.
Interesting. Good. Okay, so I think, one of the things that I always try to do is to make sure our audience, when we have panel discussions, is able to walk away with action items. So the last question I'll ask before we get to our questions from the audience is, if you were to provide advice to our audience, what is the one takeaway, or 5 takeaways or 10, whatever you want to do, that they should leave with from our session today? I'll start with you, Irina.
I would say that 2 things. One is something that you can easily do right now in any organization. When you look at the values or the guiding principles, whether that be for an organization or for a team, if you're managing a team and you're a leader, if you want them to be truly effective, they have to be verbs. We always tend to say, oh, our values are integrity or innovation, which is great, but it's not integrity. It's always do the right thing. It's not innovation. It's look at the problem from a different angle. Because when you use verbs, what you're doing is you're telling people what the action is that needs to be taken so that they're fulfilling that value and that they're fitting into what that value or principle is for the team, for the company, whatever. So not only does that then give them something to actually act on, but now you as a leader can actually measure it. So that's one little tip that I think is really something that someone could take action on very quickly right away. It's not very, very quick, but I think from a takeaway perspective, I would say that the key principle of leadership is you're not the one coming up with all the great ideas. It's to be able to listen, to create an environment where ideas can happen, It's to be able to really let people grow and develop within the team and not feel like it needs to be that, old definition of what a leader is, where it's more like dictatorship versus true leadership, which is much more resilient, much more empathetic, much more humble in terms of how you grow with your team or your company.
Very good. Thank you. And Ngozi?
Yes, I would say the first thing is write whatever your idea is, write it down and share it. And I think that is the best piece of advice that someone, actually a mentor, gave me. And it was like so basic, but just write it down, because if you do that, then you can share it and get ideas and suggestions from other people. The other thing that's really important is to figure out the why, right? So if someone asked me recently something about like, oh, a spreadsheet, why is it this way? I said, oh, it's just like this, but what's the problem? What can we do differently? And it turned out that the person had a problem with that particular color, whatever the background color was. And I said, okay, well, we can change it. And like, this person was so surprised, but I'm just like, just tell me what the problem is. What is the issue? And then we can all get our brains together to figure out, have we experienced this? Have other people experienced this? Let's come up with some ideas of how to solve it. And I guess the last piece of advice that I would say is come to your meetings with agendas. It's so much easier if you are inviting someone to a meeting, to let them know what we're going to be thinking about in advance, just to make sure that they have all the proper materials, so we can all come and we don't have to spend the first 17 minutes, turning on our brain and getting around to thinking about what you want us to think about.
Great advice. Thank you. Barb?
Well, I want to play off something that Irina said, and that was that so many women are self-effacing. They're afraid to speak up, or they feel, why should I apply for that managerial position? There are probably people who are better than I am. Well, probably not, and so I would say, take the leap. Women used to say to me all the time, I hear it less often now, thank goodness, as there are more female business owners, but women used to say to me, oh, I wish I could start my own business. And I would say, well, what's stopping you? I started in my bedroom. I built my first website myself. I stenciled floor cloths before I realized that people didn't understand what they were. And so then I started designing rugs. And my mother said to me, why are you doing that? Your older sister's the talented one. That's not your. So take the leap. If there is a managerial position open, have the confidence to apply for it, and then work with your friends, people you trust, to practice interviews so that you feel more comfortable. But again, getting back to what Irina was saying about different styles of management, remember, Mary Barra is the head of General Motors, and Mary is a woman. And our vice president is a woman. Our commerce secretary, we've got the first Native American female cabinet member. We've got a Black woman at the United Nations. We're taking over, ladies. And so have the confidence to know that you have that same ability. There isn't a magic dust that was sprinkled on us. We can all do it. We just have to have confidence and do it. You have nothing to lose. Really, if it doesn't work out, you can get another job. But give it a try.
Thanks, Barbara. Okay, Lindsay, can you moderate the questions that we've been getting and jump in? And Lindsay will just ask a question. And ladies, I'm just going to leave it up to you to to jump on and answer the question as they come before us. Lindsay?
Yes. So we have one question in the chat box and two people have their hands raised. So the first question in the chat box is, how can I break the barrier when I present to big corporation? Most of the upper management of the major retailers are white males. I am Asian American. Most of them judge me right away that Asian women-owned business is small, so they said they are giving to another global company. But we are a global company, but a smaller business.
Can I jump in on this?
Go ahead.
I think that the first statement that you made was most of them judge me right away. I think you're judging you, because I don't think that they're telling you that. I think you're going in with that attitude, and attitude and your mindset are so critical to breaking down barriers of race, color, gender. Like your mindset will allow all of that to disappear and focus on what it is that what your goal is. So I think that, I know it's easier said than done, but it really helped me a lot too, because like I had said before, I was in a very male dominated industry, and I really felt like, being that I was in financial services for so long, it was going to be so, I spoke to myself and was telling myself, oh, well, you probably can't do this, or that might be a big leap for you. No, the second I was able to calm those voices and kind of move them more aside was when I started to really come into myself and see success. So I think for you, I think you need to focus on what it is that you do, what it is that you're selling, what your company's trying to accomplish, and don't let those voices play a role in anything. Don't let them have a reason to not want to do business with you with everything that you present. I mean, it might sound a little bit, pie in the sky, but I really found that it's true, and it comes out when people have that kind of mindset. It actually shows to other people that they're doubting themselves, they're feeling judged, they're not feeling as confident, and it comes off.
I think another thing that the woman could do is to try to engage the people with whom she's speaking in a little bit of small talk first, and to talk about some areas that she's really interested in. Maybe she's a marathon runner. That's always a great one for making guys feel inferior. But talking and letting them know that you have other accomplishments. Oh, I love to go fishing. Where do you like to travel? What have you read? To try to connect a little bit more on a human point before you move into the business point, because then you've established a commonality, you're breaking the ice, and I just find that helpful. It makes the other people feel at ease, it makes me feel at ease.
I think, too, what I relate a lot to is professional athletes or amateur athletes. They have to get in the zone. As I've heard it so many times, don't listen to the noise. You figure on a basketball court, in a football field, in a hockey and soccer, any of these things, you have all the audiences screaming and yelling, and some of them are not yelling such nice things at you, but you can't listen to the noise. As Irina said, you have to focus on what it is you're presenting. You focus on the belief that you can do this, and that does show. It does show in your attitude and the way you walk into a room. Everything. If you don't have the right attitude and you're not focused on and getting in your zone and making this presentation, then it is difficult for you, because you're not going to put your best foot forward. That's just my opinion. And Ngozi, have anything you want to add?
I don't.
Okay. Lindsay, how about another question?
Yes, we have another question. Why was Custom Collaborative chosen to receive the awards, and can Ngozi speak about the awards?
Sure. And I just included a link in the chat window about Custom Collaboratives, specifically to our mask page. Buy mask, I promise you a discount. So Custom Collaborative has received several awards the past few years. We opened our first programs in 2016, and so since then, we won a Gucci Changemaker Award, which was 2020. For my leadership of Custom Collaborative in 2019, received Changemaker of the Year from New York City Fair Trade Coalition. And we just, in 2021, because of my leadership, won a AARP Purpose Prize Award. All of the awards and grants and claim and articles that we receive, everyone talks about the confluence or the intersection of the work that we do with Black and Brown women. So teaching them and setting them into the world with sustainability, right? Sustainable fashion, all about the environment. Teaching entrepreneurial skills, actually, helping people to learn a trade or a skill. I think that the awards have come, one, because we've organized a good organization that hits many cylinders, but also because we're investing in a group that is largely forgotten, right? People don't think about as much when they think about who to help. It doesn't come to mind, oh, adult women, right? People want to help children, but for the most part, these children are raised by adult women, right? But we need to invest in the parents, invest in people in order for any child to have a good space to grow up in. But I think it's those things are the way we're organized, and also we have an amazing team. We have employees and volunteers and board members and business partners that I would have never imagined that we would have, but people are invested. And so through the investment from others, we're able to, punch up a weight class or two and receive some recognition as we, help people change their lives. So definitely, I think it's because we're empowering women in a way that makes sense and that's attainable and accessible. Thank you for the question.
Excellent. Lindsay, how are we doing with a couple other questions? We have a few more minutes.
Charles R. has his hand raised, so if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, you can do so.
Thank you. So my name is Charles, and I am from the ITN department at FIT. And I don't have a question, I just have more of a comment. And I just want to say, to you ladies, thank you so much for, having the strength and the courage to go out there and be a voice and fight for what you want. Because, I grew up in a home with a single mom. It was a domestic violence situation with my dad, and he was very dominating, and it kind of hindered my mom's perception and how to face the world because of the domestic violence. She didn't feel that she was important or valued or respected, and it kind of just put her in a very dark place in her life, and she kind of held back with a lot of her dreams and a lot of her goals and aspirations. And she's the reason why I am in the field that I am now with FIT and trying to promote empowerment in women to find inner beauty within, so that they can express themselves better and more confidently in the clothes that they wear. I graduated from FIT in fashion design, and now I'm in the ITM for business. But I just wanted to share that, obviously I'm a male myself, but I really appreciate that when women stand up and just, they have that voice over men. I do think that women do need to continue to talk, like Barbara said earlier. Just keep talking.
Hello?
Don't let anyone silence you because of what they want. They want you to believe that, you're not good enough,
Charles,
So
this is Charles. This is Irina. I want to say, first of all, it's not about women.
Yeah, lessening in the
I'm
class.
sorry, somebody I don't
I'm
think is
sorry,
on.
Lindsay, can you find out who's not muted? They're talking over our panelists and guests.
Yes, I'm looking now.
Thank
So
you.
Charles, you you brought up a great point, and I wanted to say this before, and in all honesty, it slipped my mind. It's great for women to support women, but we also look at it as equality, because the men that support women are just as powerful as the women that support women. So kudos to you for your just outlook on your life and your thought process behind kind of comprehending what happened in your family situation, but also taking that and turning it into something very positive in the way that you look ahead. So, congratulations to you. And it is about, women supporting women and the men that are there to also help support women, because we all need each other. It's symbiotic relationship, and it's about finding a way to create a little bit of that balance on the scale so that it just doesn't tip in one direction.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Charles. Lindsay?
Yes.
I think there's one more hand up, or is that an old hand?
Nope, that's it. And we do not have any more questions.
Okay, well, before I turn it over to Christine, I just wanted to thank you ladies very much for taking this time and sharing your insights. We really appreciate you joining us during World Trade Week and being a part of our kickoff today. And we're very excited about all the events that are happening during World Trade Week and all of the global possibilities there are. We had a keynote speaker at 2 o'clock today to kick off the week. It was Tony Uphoff, who is the CEO of Thomas, and Thomas is a global data corporation, and he just gave some amazing statistics. And it looks like, he has a very good outlook on manufacturing, and this is a great time for manufacturing in the United States. It's coming back. Barb, what was the term that he used? Resourcing, meaning really coming back to the US so that manufacturing, because now we are on, because of the pandemic and all of the supply chain issues, we're on more of an equal level with all other manufacturers around the world. So this is an ideal time for the company, for the country to focus on our manufacturing as well as other things, and sustainability, and Ngozi, and sustainability, Irina, in clothing and design and everything. So it's a very exciting time. The fact that we've been challenged with the pandemic, it's just been a really tough go. But I took heart from the opening keynote today, who has put all this data together, and it's if we can share that, we'll make sure that you all get a notification, because it's definitely worth listening to what he had to say. And you will feel very heartened by it, I'm sure. And I think we're going to feel very heartened by women's leadership, thanks to the three of you who are giving so much to the women's community and helping in every way that you do. So thank you very much. And I'd like to turn it over to Christine Pomerantz, who'd like to say a few words. Christine is our partner in World Trade Week, and was very fortunate to put this panel together and bring everyone together. So thank you very much, Christine, and thank you, FIT.
Thank you, and you're not off the hook, because I see a question on the window from Sabrina Snow. What's your advice for getting into sustainable side of fashion if you only have big box, larger retail experience? So if you can address that, that would be great.
Was that for anyone specific, or does it matter?
I think it's to all the panel.
Well, I think that, getting into the sustainable side of fashion, and I work with many brands that are, across the scale of sustainability. And you have to look at sustainability as a scale. It's a very broad word. There are some brands that are sustainable, and, it's their packaging that's recyclable. And then there's other brands that are sustainable where they're absolutely using 100% circular products in their entire line. So it's a scale. So what that scale looks like to you might be very different than what it looks like to me. So I think you need to identify first where in sustainability you're comfortable playing, where you want to be. And then having big box or large retail experience shouldn't matter, because at some level, most brands that are, a lot of the brands that are in retailers and big box stores are all on the sustainability bandwagon in a good way. I think that everybody's looking to find ways to be more sustainable, to be more environmentally friendly, to take a look at circularity and how it can play a role, whether it be in fashion or consumer products. And so I don't think that that would be a hindrance to you, but I do think maybe figuring out, you know, what you want to do within sustainability, and then your experience will, obviously what you learn will lend itself to that. So
Yeah, and I would just add, I think everything that Irina said is right. I would add that sustainability, people are recognizing that sustainability includes not just environment, but also human rights and fair wages. So one of the great things about FIT is that they offer the sustainability certificate. So at least probably take a class there, but just think about all of the aspects of sustainability. Even WWD magazine, One Day a Week, has a sustainability section. Just so there's so many ways to be sustainable, just to look and identify what's the best path for you to learn more and to be an expert in.
Barb, you're muted. You're muted.
I wanted to point to this rug because it's made from recycled sari silk. Mm-hmm. And that became available to people who design. And it's lovely, and it's a way of reusing material. So even if it isn't directly in fashion, that material can translate into other industries. And certainly wool, everybody's recycling wool now. Eileen Fisher is asking for her old clothes back so that she can recycle that material. So I think that people are so clever, and there are always so many new ideas that are wonderful. I don't think that your background in just one type of retailing would limit you. I think though that when Ngozi said, take a few courses and kind of open your mind and think about how you can fit in that sustainability flow.
Yeah.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you so much. And Nancy, thank you so much for summarizing today's landmark events. What a tremendous discussion we've had, right? But just so you know who I am, my name is Christine Pomerantz. I'm Vice Chair of the New York District Export Council. I'm also proud to be Chair of FIT's Department of International Trade and Marketing for the Fashion Industries. And so we really want to thank our illustrious panel, I mean, really, including Nancy, Barbara, Ngozi, and Irina, who have been tremendous. And they have been sports. It's been so easy to organize the event with them. Whenever we asked them to come, they came. You know, so these are really action-forward women. I would also like to thank Representative Carolyn Maloney and Secretary Gina Raimondo and their teams for their key participation in this event. Not only is it going to stop here, but they also will help us with future legislation, as well as encourage their teams to double, triple, whatever their goals are. So that's, it's wonderful to see that this is a continuing effort. Finally, we wish to recognize Miles Matthews of the New York District Export Council's Legislative Committee, who gave us the idea to produce this event. The rest of the committee, Andrea Ratte, our chair, our fearless chair, Barney Lehrer and Lindsay Dini, who provided the critical tech support, our co-sponsors, the International Women's Entrepreneurial Challenge, Nancy actually founded that and is really taking it to the next level. And also Fashion Institute of Technology's Department of International Trade and Marketing, Professor Patrick Yanez and his International Marketing Research class, who is here today, and all of you, the audience, for your enthusiastic attendance. We hope that you will continue to patronize the rest of our World Trade Week events listed at worldtradeweeknyc.org. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Good night.
Good night.
Stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.